Good evening, I'm Greg Floyd. Less than an hour to go now for an on-time state budget after a day of waiting around the Assembly and Senate chambers tonight. A furious debate over education. A lot of Assembly Democrats don't seem to like the education bill, but almost all of them voting for it. It has just passed the Assembly and the Senate. You can't be there, but Craig Smith is live.
Hi, Greg. Yeah, just a minute ago I spoke with Assemblyman Jim Tedesco, and we were talking about the vote tally. He says this means we got 10 or 12 Democrats. It was 92-54. That's the result here in the Assembly. Over in the Senate, it was 36-26. Even though it's a budget session, they're not necessarily talking about how much money should be spent on this or that. It's all about the policy that's attached to these budget bills. And one of the things that got the most attention here for the last several hours, starting from around 5 o'clock, is that bill that affects teachers and students.
50% is absurd, right?
Steve McLaughlin of Schaghticoke, referring to the percentage of a student's test scores the governor proposed applying to teacher evaluations. Assemblywoman Kathy Nolan told colleagues challenging the bill it's the best this body could do.
And that by not going to what the executive had proposed on the 50% test scores, the regions will produce a less flawed system, if you will.
In the Senate, one speech lamented the exclusion of the New York DREAM Act that might help kids whose parents came into the country illegally.
I'm sick and tired about being sick and tired of having my vote taken for granted.
New York Public Interest Research Group Director Blair Horner says the ethics language leaves a lot to be desired, specifically limits on outside income.
The problem you're trying to solve is that lawmakers are using their public office for private gain. Disclosure doesn't solve it. Disclosure might help, but it doesn't solve it.
Our worry is that it won't be discussed for the next who knows how many years. So we are concerned that this is about as far as they're willing to go.
Jim Tedesco once again made the point that too much paper is costly. They also eat up many hours starting in daylight and often finishing only a few hours from sunrise, passing bills they barely have time to read and understand.
I don't agree with coupling legislation like this. I'd like to see legislative matters taken out of the budget and done separately. This is an education issue. I think it should be a standalone issue. I think
A spokesperson for our New York State United Teachers, the union tonight, told me that he expects they'll now start fighting to undo some of what this education budget does. He says they'll have the rest of the session to do that, and actually the rest of the next year, since some of the provisions, the actual evaluations that this calls for, wouldn't happen for another year from now. More budget work to be done here tonight. They have every incentive to get it done by midnight. First of all, by statute, that's supposed to be done by midnight, and no doubt all of them would like to get out of the building. We're live in Albany. Craig Smith, CBS 6 News.